And welcome back, rugby fans, to Rugby411. As always, I'm your host. My name is Joshua Shibata, and I'm going to get to this very soon as we talk about our 2024 MLR playoff review for the first week of playoff action. It is technically the quarterfinals, if you want to call it that. Your top four teams in the Eastern Conference faced off against each other. Top four teams in the Western Conference faced off against each other. And as predicted, it was an exciting weekend of Major League Rugby action. I feel honestly, you just look at the scoreboard with the way that these teams played. Competition is high in Major League Rugby. Literally, it is any given Saturday or Sunday. Any team can beat any team, and it is never more proven than this weekend, as we probably had the biggest upset in playoff history. A number 4 seed took down a number 1 seed, and that is why we have this up here on the board. We'll be talking about the curse of the number 1 seed, and how just because you finish the season number 1 doesn't necessarily mean you have the best chances of becoming the MLR champions at the end of the playoffs. But before we get into that, let's talk about the games. First, New England versus Old Glory, classic rivalry. I was not surprised. Oh, by the way, I had a great conversation with an amazing rugby fan from South Africa. He is really, really cool guy. Lewin is his name. If you ever get the chance to check out his YouTube channel, Llewellyn, I'm sorry. Llewellyn is his name. If you ever get a chance to check out his YouTube channel, he is a very, very cool guy. We had a really great conversation with each other over everything rugby. He picked my brain on a lot of things involving MLR action. He's actually, like I said, a South African rugby fan who is really, really interested in rugby here in America. He watches it all on the Rugby Network, which I've always been telling people about it, how it is a great streaming platform that allows people from across the world to access Major League Rugby. And it is growing the sport. It is growing the name of Major League Rugby across the world. There is a big interest because, again, like I was talking to Llewellyn, he is a big fan of certain international players, obviously, who have made their way over to America in Major League Rugby. So that's piqued his interest to catch up on what is going on in America. He's found my channel and he loves it, and it's very informative, and it keeps him in contact with what's going on in Major League Rugby. So I do appreciate support. Check out his YouTube channel. We had a conversation. He'll put it up in just a couple of days. The Sports Club. I'll put the information down here. The Sports Club. Check it out. Again, we had a great conversation, an hour's worth, talking about Rugby Football Club LA's season, what it was, kind of a review, what the future holds. We could have been easily talking for hours, and I just met the guy. So Llewellyn, great dude. Look forward to talking to him again in the future about everything Major League Rugby. But anyways, when we were talking about, we also talked about the playoffs. And with New England Old Glory, like I told Llewellyn, I was not surprised at how close this game was. Again, it always seems like Old Glory has a younger brother complex with New England. They always tend to bring their A game. They always bring it to New England, and this game was no different. From the very start, Reese McDonald scores for Old Glory within 3 minutes. Of course, New England comes back with Connor Buckley scoring. I'm sorry, Reese McDonald scores for Old Glory, for New England. Connor Buckley scores for Old Glory. They're going back and forth. Old Glory really started slicing up New England's defense from the very start. But Old Glory also did give up a lot of penalties, and that's really what kept New England in the game in the first half of the game. Jason Patros, you don't let him kick off of the tee as often as you can because he will take every advantage of it, and he kept New England in the game. Old Glory, though, did score a try with Fontanella Schultz right before the half, going up 21 to, right before the hydration break. They were up 21 to 13. But after that, New England started turning on the engines. They scored 17 straight points. So by the half, they were up 30 to 21. In the second half, New England's defense did start to show up. Connor Buckley did score a hat trick, the very first hat trick in Major League Rugby history during the playoffs. So congratulations to Connor Buckley of Old Glory. Unfortunately, that hat trick wasn't enough, as it has still allowed New England to walk away with the win, 33 to 29. Again, though, very, very close game, but I feel that the difference was they allowed Jason Patros to take 6 penalty kicks. He was 4 for 6 off of the tee. You just don't let a guy like Jason Patros get that many kick attempts and expect to win the game. So again, like I said, in the first half, that really kept New England in the game, and they ended up walking away. Very tight game, though, 33 to 29. Hats off to Old Glory. You played really, really well. But New England moves on to the conference championship games to possibly defend their Major League Rugby championship. Now, next game. This was the upset of the playoffs. Houston taking on the number 1 team, Houston, taking on the number 4 team in the Western Conference, the Dallas Shackles. Dallas strikes first with 2 tries, and Houston honestly looked really like a dazzle in the game. I felt that Dallas was aggressive from the very start. Houston kind of was on the back foot from the start. I don't want to say that they took Dallas lightly, but I feel that they kind of slept on Dallas, and by the time they realized that they had to start playing, Dallas was too far ahead, and Houston couldn't catch up. Houston does strike back, though, with 2 of their own tries. The score is 15 to 12. Right before the half, though, Dallas scores 10 points themselves to take the lead, 20 to 15 going into the half. In the second half, again, Houston just kept looking very, very sluggish. Pivotal point was, I can't remember which player it was, but one of the Houston players decided to do a grubber kick in their own half. It bounced right off of a Dallas player, right into the hands of another Dallas player. Easy try for Dallas, and really, it was plays like that that allowed Dallas to capitalize and score and keep the momentum going, and rugby is all about momentum. Dallas had it. Houston was really struggling with it. And by the 10 minutes left in the game, Dallas was up 5-5. Houston, though, makes another error that allows Juan D. Oliver, who was easily the player of the match from Dallas, to score a try. He had a great game. He scored the winning try, 12 points by Juan D. Oliver, 3 for 5 off of the tee and that try, allowing Dallas to score the huge upset, 34 to 22 over Houston. And again, that's where we come up to this. It is the curse of the number 1 seed in the history of Major League Rugby. As you'll see from this handy-dandy charts. In the history of Major League Rugby, only one team has gone into the playoffs as the best team in the league, the number 1 seed, and has successfully won the championship. Let's go over the history. Starting with 2018, you had the Glendale Raptors. They ended up becoming the Colorado Raptors, and then unfortunately they left the league going into 2020. And they are now the American Raptors, which if you follow Super Rugby Americas, they compete in that league. They are also technically the crossover team. A lot of the players are from other worlds of sports, and they've been convinced to change to rugby players. It is a really fun team to watch. There's a lot of growth there. But at one point, the Glendale Raptors was a team in Major League Rugby. They were the number 1 team going into the playoffs, though Seattle, who was the second-ranked team, ended up winning the first of their 2 championships. Then in 2019, San Diego was the very number 1 seeded team in going into the playoffs. They, of course, lost in the finals to Seattle, who once again were the second-ranked team, and that was their back-to-back Major League Rugby championships. 2020, unfortunately, we had COVID, so there was no playoffs. 2021, of course, was LA Guillotines going in their very first year, best team in the league, and ended up winning the championship. It's a beautiful memory. And it was a wonderful moment. Being a guy who was, arguably the #1 fan of the LA Guillotinis, it was amazing to see a team go pretty much from the beginning to the end, best team in the league, to the championships. It's only happened once so far in the 7-year history of Major League Rugby. 2022, the following year, New England was actually the #1 ranked team, but unfortunately, they fell to New York, who ended up winning their championship. They were technically the third best team in the East, not even in the league, and they ended up winning the championship. Possibly, arguably the biggest underdogs who so far hold up the MLR Shield. And now, we're in 2023. Houston was the best team. Unfortunately, they have fallen to the Dallas Jackals, who will end up picking up the Shield. Regardless of who it is not the best team in the league. So again, the curse of the #1 team. Only one team out of the 6 years. Technically, it's so far 5 years of playoffs, 7 years history. There's only been one team who's ranked #1 who's come out of the playoffs. It just shows you, to be honest, how hard it is to win a championship in Major League Rugby, and how, as I've always mentioned before, rugby is a game of attrition. You may start out as the best, but it's really how well you can survive through and stay on top. That's the challenging part. So it really does open the doors for, hey, if you at least make the playoffs, you have a shot, as proven in history, of winning. Even the Dallas Jackals, technically, after taking down Houston, could end up walking out as your new Major League Rugby champions. Now, moving on to the last half of our games, I thought that was just a very interesting stat to kind of throw out there. Moving on, back to the Eastern Conference. NOLA go over to the Chicago Hounds. Now, this was an interesting game because, again, NOLA was a surprising team for me. I wasn't expecting a lot from them. Chicago, I definitely was. What a turnaround. You lose your head coach, Sam Harris. You haven't lost a game since losing the head coach, Sam Harris. And Chicago looked dominant in this game. NOLA did score first, but then Chicago came back with Dylan the Butcher Fawcett scoring his 54th Major League Rugby try. #1 try scorer in all of Major League Rugby history. So congratulations again to you, Dylan the Butcher Fawcett. Chicago did get a miscue, though, later on. NOLA was able to tie up the game with a try. After a yellow card, though, on NOLA goal, Jordan Jackson Hope, Julian Dominguez, who has been phenomenal for Chicago, scores a try against his former team, NOLA Gold, to allow Chicago to go up at the half, 18-16. Then in the second half, Chicago scored first. NOLA was able to kind of fight back with another player who's been phenomenal for NOLA, Jonah Mau, who has been just a phenomenal guy that's popped up on the NOLA team, scores a try, gets NOLA within 5 at the 55-minute mark, but then NOLA just falls apart. Chicago scores 3 straight tries in order to walk away with the very dominant, convincing win, 45-21. Chicago looks amazing. Right now, they look like the team to beat, in my opinion, so far in the playoffs. We'll see how things go as we move on to the next week. Now, last game, a absolute classic. It is another chapter in the history of the rivalry between your two-time Major League Rugby champions, the Seattle Seawolves, and the San Diego Legion. Will San Diego be able to upend Seattle like they did last year? History is not so kind for San Diego, unfortunately. Right from the start, they trade back and forth penalty kicks. Seattle scores their first try, but a yellow card to San Diego as Marcel Bracchi allows Seattle to take advantage, scoring 2 more tries. Seattle, though, gives up a lot of penalties. 7 penalties to allow Matt Gitto to keep San Diego in the game. At the half, San Diego is down 9-18. In the second half, though, Seattle's seawall really comes into effect. Not only do they keep San Diego out of the try zone in the first half, they continue that in the second half. Seattle was able to, unfortunately though, Seattle did get a yellow card. That allows San Diego to capitalize and score a try. And then Seattle, though, opened up the floodgates with a penalty try of their own, and then a convincing, pretty much dagger into the heart of San Diego, a try by Pago Haini. Interesting thing to keep an eye out, Mac Mason, who has been easily the best player on the Seattle squad, top point scorer in the 2024 season, looked like he hurt himself when he tried to kick the conversion on that last Seattle try by Pago Haini. He did have to leave right after that. Sam Windsor, though, is the backup. And again, we talk about a guy who scored the most points in this season for Mac Mason. Sam Windsor is the guy who has scored the most points of all Major League Rugby history. Not a bad guy to have as your replacement fly half. So we'll see what happens with that if Sam Windsor has to start in the next week. But that is kind of a big blow for Seattle. But after that, even though San Diego does score 2 more tries, a beautiful try by Thomas Aoeke, and a penalty try because this game got really, really chippy at the end, those were kind of garbage time tries. I feel by that point, Seattle already had the game. So even though the score was 28-30 Seattle, it wasn't as close as the scoreboard showed. Again, those last 2 tries were literally in the last minute of the game. Seattle pretty much had the game scored away, and they looked pretty good as your two-time defending champions. San Diego once again losing to Seattle. Seattle again has beaten San Diego 5 times in the playoffs, and San Diego's still looking for their 2nd win and still looking for their first championship. Unfortunately, denied that this year. So I will have a preview video of the games that are coming up. I won't talk about in this video, but you have on one side New England, Chicago being played in Veterans Memorial Stadium, and on the Western Conference, a very interesting showdown between the Dallas Jackals and the Seattle Seawolves. You still have the only 2 teams left in Major League Rugby that have championships. Your two-time champions Seattle, and then your champions New England. We'll talk about it in my preview video of who I think might walk away with the championship. But yeah, and like I said, it's been a great weekend of playoff action. I feel with the 4 teams left over, it still will be really, really impressive. But yeah, that's my video. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. Again, check out the Sports Club with my guy Llewellyn and our conversation. I'll let you know when that video goes up. But again, give him a like, give him a follow with his YouTube channel, The Sports Club. He has a great mind for rugby. It was fun to talk to him for just the hour. And again, it's going to be exciting as we go into the conference championship games into this 2024 season. So again, thank you very much for watching my video. As always, I appreciate the support, and I'll see you on the pitch.